Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Harvard Alumni for Global Women's Empowerment Fireside Chat series. Thank you for joining us from all around the world. If you could write in the chat where you're joining and if it's your first event with us, that would be great so we can see we're all coming. Thank you, and it's so wonderful to see you all. Kindly note that we are recording this event today for our social media platforms. We're going to be posting this on YouTube as usual, and you can see there all the past recordings of our events. My name is Anna Butuzova, and I'm the programming co-chair at Harvard Global We. Harvard Global We is a shared interest group, or SIG, of Harvard Alumni Association. And this year, we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary. Please check our website for information about how you can join our commemorative events and celebrate with us. We're going to put the link in the chat for our anniversary page. So we're dedicated to the empowerment of women through education, dialogue, and connection among individuals working for women's rights and freedoms worldwide. We highlight and raise awareness about issues concerning women's empowerment all over the world, including but not limited to education, political rights, freedom from violence, women's health, and economic empowerment, which is the topic of our talk today. Our board of directors is as global as our interests, with representatives in the US, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. I invite any board members present to type in their title and where they're joining from in the chat so that people can know you and maybe connect with you if they wish to do so. So today, our Connect team is proud to hold its 9th event in an exciting program series called the Fireside Chats. It features senior leaders from big organizations, global organizations, serving women and girls from around the world. So if this is your first Global We event, welcome. For attendees who have joined us before, welcome back. We're excited to have everyone here. We value your engagement and continuing support. So as you know, Global We is a registered 501c3 organization, and any donations will be tax deductible in the US. Donations can be made by clicking on the donate tab on our website, where you can use credit card, PayPal, Giving, Zelle, or whatever. And we are entirely run on donations. So any event that we do, expo, movie club, 10K race, anything is based on the donations. So let's take a quick moment now to take a screenshot. So if you wish to do so, we ask you now to please turn on your cameras if you're comfortable and having your picture shared on Globally social media. I already have my camera on, so I'm just gonna do. So for people who join right now, we're gonna take a screenshot and put it on our website and on our social media. So if you're comfortable, let's just do something like 1, 2, 3. Carrie, did you get it? Let's do another one, just for fun, because there's a lot of people. So 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Got it.
And now we're gonna do the most exciting part. So we're thrilled to welcome Zoe Dean Smith, Senior Vice President, Leadership and Social Impact in Vital Voices Global Leadership Partnership. First, Ms. Dean Smith will deliver remarks for about 15 minutes, and then we're gonna have a Q&A session with Global We Connect team member Annika Gray. There will be an opportunity for attendees to ask questions. You can put them in the chat, you can raise your hand to ask them, whatever works for you. We hope that you enjoy today's discussion featuring the Vital Voices Global Leadership Partnership and become a member or a friend of Global We to receive our newsletter. Here should have put a link in the chat to how to join that if you're not already on it. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Zoe Dean Smith. Zoe is responsible for driving Vital Voices' global approach to leadership and social impact to advance the organization's mission. She is an international award-winning social entrepreneur and social impact visionary with experience in economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, community development, leadership, and mentoring across the world, in sectors including social enterprise, for-profit business, non-profit organizations, with the driving force to provide solutions and bring positive change. Since 2008, Zoe has presented the Holistic Life Map, a life-changing personal development workshop to multiple audiences around the world, and she also serves on a number of boards, including the board of the Grassroots Business Fund, a mentor of the Chair Blair Mentoring Women in Business program, and Mandela Washington Fellowship Program for Young African Leaders. In 2008, Zoe initiated a Young Women's Mentorship Program in the Kingdom of Eswatini. Outside of work, Zoe is an emerging author and is one of the several co-authors of the recently published book, Create Your Best Life: True Stories from Around the World. She's a dog lover and indoor cycling instructor. Her driving force: I thrive on helping others be their best selves. Zoe, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and hello to everyone. It's lovely to see in the chat where you all come from. I'm just going to share my screen now. So please let me know. Can you see that? Because I now can't see your faces.
Yes, we can see that.
Yes, I can see you.
Great. Well, I'm very pleased to be able to speak a little bit about Vital Voices, an organization that is very, very close to my heart. I've been with the organization for about 15 years. I actually met Vital Voices when I was in a conference in Ghana in 2005. I met our CEO and co-founder Elise Nelson at a conference. We got chatting about a necklace, a beaded necklace quite similar to this one, and that's how I kind of landed in the space of working with Vital Voices. A little bit about the organization. It was established after the Beijing Conference on Women, which took place in 1995. And we're set up to really work with women leaders who are solving the world's greatest challenges. So we consider ourselves to be venture catalysts who identify women who have a bold vision for change, and we partner with them to make that change happen, make it become a reality. So the role that we play is that we feel that we scale and accelerate the impact of those women through long-term investments where we are expanding their skills, we're expanding their network, we're expanding their capacity, as well as their visibility. So just a little bit more history. We've provided early support to leaders who went on to become Nobel Peace Prize Laureates, such as Malala, Amanda Gorman, who was the poet who spoke at President Biden's inauguration, participated in one of our programs when she was about 16 years old. We've worked with prime ministers and a lot of breakthrough social entrepreneurs. So since our founding in 1997, we've worked with more than 20,000 women in over 185 countries and territories around the world. We invest in those women because they take on the responsibility to improve their communities, their countries, and their societies. And our tagline is invest in women, improve the world. So with those women, by them exhibiting their visionary thinking and taking risks to innovate, they are doing things like they're changing laws, they're creating jobs, they're changing culture and norms in their countries, and they're defending freedoms and making change that have a ripple effect not only in their country, but in the global community as well. So we partner with women who practice leadership that unites and inspires people. So we particularly look for women who are already making change in their community. If they're working just for themselves, we're not that interested in them. But, you know, if they have that demonstrated track record that they are making massive change, sometimes they don't even see it, and we do, and we love working with them and investing in them. And we know that one intervention is not enough to support those women. So what we do is we see our deep investment as being a case of a woman might come into one of our programs. Let's say she comes into one of our social entrepreneurship programs and realizes that she wants to do more in her community. Perhaps she wants to establish a nonprofit to work with survivors of child trafficking. So she might then participate in another program working on that public leadership. We see it as a very long-term investment in each of those women. So this is a little sort of graphic of what we do. We provide financial investments, and what that looks like is we work with a number of women who are escaping extreme forms of gender-based violence. And some of that investment is to basically be able to send them money for them to get out of those situations where they could be beaten to death. So we're sending money via Western Union for them to be able to get a bus ticket, a train ticket to get to a place of safety. We work in the area of crisis response. And so in our history, you know, having built up that network of 20,000 women, I'm sure you can imagine that every time something happens, like an earthquake or a war, whatever the situation is, those women reach out to us to say, how can you help us? How can you lobby for us, get us the money we need to get out of this situation? So in about 2022, we established a crisis response team that works specifically on that. And a real example I can give of that is that when the Afghanistan situation took place, we were approached by a couple of people who said, you know, what are you doing to get your women from Afghanistan out of the country to a place of safety? And we launched a fundraising campaign, and within a week we were able to raise about $10 million. And we were able to get just over 1,000 women, Afghan women and their families, out of Afghanistan. And we provided them with shelter in Albania. The majority of them were there for about a year, and then they were able to find other places to live. Most of them have actually moved to Canada. I think there's about 5 still left in Albania. So another thing we do is we provide visibility and credibility to those women. So if we have a woman leader who wins an award or is doing something extraordinary, we will leverage our networks to be able to give them more visibility. All the women who join our programs are automatically given access to our global network of women that we work with. And then we do very holistic leadership building with all of them. So here's an example of Helen Gwamfogbe, who is from Cameroon, a little bit of her story of how we've worked with her. So in 1982, she established Nkumu Fed, an organization based in Cameroon. And in 1996, it became a network. And she focuses on child labor issues. So a law was passed against child labor in 2005, and we invited Helen in 2007 to come to a global summit of African leaders, which took place in Cape Town, South Africa. We then supported a justice institute in Cameroon, where basically in those institutes, we bring together women activists working in the country together with lawmakers, and sometimes together with the police force, and bring them together for a couple of weeks for them to work together and share best practice. So from there, Helen partnered with Vital Voices to change the national law against human trafficking. And since then, we've also provided her with grants, training, and mentorship. And I'm pleased to say that in 2015, Helen actually mentored her successor in that Nkumu Fed organization, and she was invited in 2020 to join a summit of leaders who are focusing on gender-based violence. So she's an example of some of the women that we work with in the organization. We've also seen the power that these women have when they want to take collective action. And one of the things that I'm proud to say that we got involved in 2022 was having Iran removed from the Commission on the Status of Women, because they were a member of that organization. And looking at the way that women are treated in Iran, we thought it was a little bit rich for them to belong to the organization. So they were kicked out. We also, many of the women who come into our programs get super excited about being recognized as a leader, and they want to go back to their country and do more. They want to know how they can pay forward the investment that's made in them. So probably about 10 or 12 years ago, we started doing what's called women mentoring women walks, where women would go back and on International Women's Day or around that sort of time, they'll organize walks in their local, in their countries, in their cities, in their towns, where they will just invite young women to be mentored by more experienced women in a walk around a park or whatever. And they've included sort of inspirational talks together with that and panel conversations. So there's a lot of different ways that we see amazing action from the women that we work with. So we work in these areas in human rights and human trafficking, in public leadership, in economic opportunity and leadership development, which are my two areas of expertise, and in crisis response, which I've already mentioned. In my department, the Leadership and Social Impact Department, we focus on women social entrepreneurs. And we have a number of programs focused on developing leadership skills, building the capacity of social entrepreneurs, providing mentorship and coaching for them, and then cultivating and activating networks of those women. We have about 10 different programs, and I'm happy to share more about them with you a little bit later in the conversation. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to share this video of one of the women, Spoo Mieni, who is from South Africa. She comes from an area of KwaZulu-Natal called the Valley of 1,000 Hills. And she participated in a mentoring program with us in 2015 called the Global Ambassadors Program, which is a very high-level mentoring program. So she's going to refer to that. The program is funded by Bank of America, and we're still in that partnership with a bank. And this is a 2-minute video on how that investment has really shaped her future. So let me see if it'll start. Is it going to work for me? If I enter, I thought I'd got that so well organized. I'm so sorry. I'll have to find the video.
That's okay. So in the meantime, Annika just wrote, well, first of all, I wrote that Vile Voices works with 185 countries and organizations. That is just mind-blowing. And then Annika wrote that as our audience listens into the presentation and then a follow-up discussion that Annika is going to lead in a second, please feel free to, at any moment, questions in the chat. We're going to try to group them and then use this time, use the remaining time to also give an opportunity for Zoe to answer your questions. So put your questions in the chat as you're gonna continue listening into what we are about to hear. Zoe,
so can I try and show that video again?
Yes.
Okay.
Right now I see you, so if you want to share your screen again and then try, that would be the best.
We'll give it a try. Thank you for your
we'll give it a try. If there is a link, maybe we can also put it in the chat so that everybody just watches it on its own. I don't know. Let's see.
Let's see. I'm going to do this and let's give it a try.
Yeah, we can see it and hear.
My journey began in the Valley of 1,000 Hills, one of the most beautiful places in South Africa. On the first day of the Global Ambassadors Program, my mentor asked, "What's your purpose, Spoo?" I didn't know. So I said, if I can help 1,000 kids in my lifetime, that will be enough. And then she asked, by what date? So we agreed I would touch the lives of 1,000 kids by 2020, helping them to realize dreams that they would never think they could have. In the land of 1,000 hills, 1,000 kids would reach for 1,000 dreams. Poetic. Everybody loved it. So then I had to make it happen. But I wasn't alone. I leaned on the knowledge and connections of not just my mentor.
Oh, sorry. What did I do here? I pushed
Nothing. You just clicked on pause. So just click on play and then it continues. Nothing happened. We can still see it.
Okay, where is it?
But the other 9 global ambassadors and all the other mentees. Bank of America made connections to people with expertise I didn't have. And Vital Voices connected me to a network of women all over the world. In the land of 1,000 hills, by 2020, 1,000 kids reached 1,000 dreams.
Zoe, I think we have a paused video at the moment. So we can hear the audio, but I can't see the video. I don't know if it's only me. Okay.
I understood. I have big wings. I can fly. So
Okay.
we'll keep building. And by 2025, we'll reach 10,000.
Did you miss the end of that, or you saw it?
Just we missed the end of it, but can you
Okay.
put the link to that YouTube in the chat?
Okay.
Oh.
All right, give me a sec.
Okay.
There we go. The joys of YouTube. I'll put it in the chat.
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
And Leah is writing, very inspiring from what we saw.
great.
I like the smart goals that they
Yes.
had in this video. Like, what can you do?
Yeah.
Oh, it's 1,000 children. Okay, by when? So
Yeah. All right, I am going to put that in there.
yes, and then
Okay.
thank you. And then you can reshare your PowerPoint if you'd like.
Oh, it's just that was the end of it. So
Oh, that was the end of it.
can check,
Okay, that's
yeah.
great. Well, thank you so much, Zoe. Thank you for leading Vital Voices Global Leadership Partnerships. It sounds amazing, and I'm excited to hear more. So now I would like to introduce Global We Connect team member, Annika Gray. Annika is also amazing. She has been moderating 2 other fireside chats, and she has been involved with organizing this one. She is the core team member who made this fireside chat happen. So she will now moderate a question and answer session with Ms. Dean Smith. Annika is the Director of Gender Equity Initiative at Northwestern Pritzker School of Law, and we're very excited that she's one of our volunteers.
Okay, so thank you so much, Anna. And thank you so much, Zoe, for joining us today and for that inspiring and thought-provoking presentation. Now, as I go into the question, based on your presentation, since its inception, Vital Voices has been investing in women leaders trying to solve the world's greatest challenges, including women's economic empowerment. And in your presentation, you mentioned that you had a number of programs. And so my first question relates to, can you share a little bit more about those how you have used those different programs to support women, social entrepreneurs around the world?
Sure. Happy to do that. And what I think I'll do, I'll just go back to that slide so I can just talk through them with you. Let me find it. It's over here from this one here. Can you see the slide?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So we have a number of different programs. As I mentioned earlier, predominantly in our department, they focus on social entrepreneurship. We also have programs focused on young women and girls. And over the years, we have also developed what we call our Vital Voices leadership journey. So having worked with 20,000 women, we've observed that there are certain different practices that they all seem to have. So we developed a 7-week online course called the Vital Voices Leadership Journey, and we offer that to various different audiences. And the first one is the program that you see there, Vivi Visionaries, is the Vital Voices Leadership Journey in partnership with Estee Lauder. And we offer this 7-week curriculum to 3 different cohorts every year of 50 women, and they're women from around the world, from different age groups, different backgrounds, sectors, etc. So they basically all go through that journey. The second program is our longest program in Vital Voices. It has a really long name, as you can see on the screen. The Fortune US State Department Global Women's Mentoring Partnership. This is a really exciting partnership that we have between Vital Voices, the Department of State, and Fortune's Most Powerful Women. It's been going since 2006. And basically what happens is every year, the State Department decides which countries around the world they want to focus on. And they invite the embassies in those countries to nominate 3 or 4 women aged between, I think, about 25 and 42 years old who have high leadership potential. They nominate them to come to the US for a month, and they spend a week with us at Vital Voices, where we do our leadership training, we do networking training, public speaking training, etc. And then those mentees go and spend about 10 days in a Fortune 500 company, being mentored by one senior woman leader and a community of other mentors within that company. And then we bring them back together again in New York City at the end of the program for a couple of days of wrap up, and then they go back home. In this program, also every year, we have an international alumni gathering. So each year we rotate the geographies. So for example, at the end of August, we're doing an alumni gathering in Sri Lanka, where we will have alumni from 2006 all the way up until last year, coming from that region to spend 5 days together, networking and connecting with each other. The next program, number 3, is our Global Ambassadors Program. You saw that partial video of one of our mentees, Spumieni. This is a partnership with Bank of America, where historically what we've done is week-long mentoring programs where we bring together between 8 and 12 mentor-mentee pairs. And the mentors are global women executives from multinational corporations, etc. And the mentees are women social entrepreneurs and nonprofit leaders who are managing annual revenues of between about $250,000 and $10 million annually. So they're not startups, they're women who know what they don't know. And we bring them together for a week of capacity building training, where we do things like financial management, human resource management, public speaking, communications, social and digital media. And then they also spend time doing one-on-one mentoring with their assigned mentor. And I think we've had about 200 pairs of mentors and mentees across the years that we've done that program. The next one, Grassroots Voices, is aimed at women aged between 18 and 35 in the US who are making change. So we're looking at those sort of like younger leaders, and they go through the Vital Voices leadership journey. And then we have a grant competition where they can apply for funding to work on the community projects that they're involved in. We have partnered with Bumble, the dating app, and we do the leadership program with them. And we also have a number of grants that they can apply for in our Moves Making Impact grant competition, again, to do things with their communities. Bold Movers, a partnership with Stuart Weitzman, is a very similar program, again, aimed at younger women. I think the age group there is about 18 to 25 who are making big change in their communities. Again, they do leadership training and they have the opportunity to apply for grants. Then our biggest, newest one that we're doing at the moment is our Vital Voices Global Fellowship, which we just launched this year. So if you'll remember, when I talked a little bit earlier, we talked about the fact that we do human rights work, we do crisis response, social entrepreneurship, we work with public leaders. And our goal is to have a fellowship where we take all of our existing fellowships into one and bring them together. So we are bringing 6 pillars, actually 5 or 6 pillars together, including a new pillar, which we're hoping to get started next year on climate. So all of these women do the same sort of foundational curriculum, and then they do breakout curriculum in their particular field of expertise. So this year we've launched it with our Social Entrepreneurship Fellowship, which is called Vivi Venture, and Vivi Engage, which focuses on women public leaders. Then we have the leadership journey that I've already shared with you. We have a partnership with Procter & Gamble called Voices That Inspire, which works with young women in the Latin America and Caribbean region. That's also about capacity building, and they also apply for grants to do community work. And then the last piece that we have recently introduced is Rising Voices Clubs, and we're planning to work on chapters as well, where we're aiming to reach young women in high schools and in universities and help them to really think about their leadership journey. And we see this also as a pipeline for getting them into our other programs within Vital Voices. So that's a very quick snapshot of some of the work that we do in the team that I head up. The location of our office is in Washington, D.C. It's on 16th Street, and it's about 8 blocks away from the White House.
Okay, wow. That's all I have to say. It's amazing the depth and breadth of the work that Vital Voices is doing to empower women. And so having reached over 20,000 women and worked with organizations for over 15 years, you have been able to also provide us with 2 stories of the impact of the organization's work with 2 women, one in Cameroon and the other in South Africa. And of course, as I was in our previous discussion, I would have said to you, we love stories. We love stories where we can see how the work that the organization is actually impacting persons. So can you tell us a couple more stories on how those programs that you just mentioned have supported those women leaders to push forward their vision?
Yeah. Well, one of the things, which is not really a story, one of the things that I love about this network is how the women love connecting with each other. And so often when we're on calls, they'll talk about one of them might be doing education work in Nicaragua, and then somebody else doing something similar in Nigeria. And we connect them together, and then they start collaborating with each other, which is pretty incredible. But the one story that I can share with you is about Xiomara Diaz, who is from Nicaragua. And she came into one of our mentoring programs, I think in 2013. And at that stage, she was running a business called the Garden Cafe, which is a very niche sort of organic restaurant, which has a gift store where she supports local artisans. She had an Airbnb, I think, connected to it, and was organizing tours around the city. And she noticed that there was a lot of child trafficking and sex trafficking going on because of the cruise liners that come into Nicaragua. So, and she learned about different programs that we offer in this sort of space. So she signed up for, it wasn't a Justice Institute, but it was another program outside of our social entrepreneurship, where she wanted to learn how to be a better public leader. And as a result of that, she launched a nonprofit foundation working to do 2 things. One is to educate the girls, trying to get them out of the sex trafficking situation, and to provide them with forms of income generation. So they started doing jewelry design, jewelry production, etc. So she's an example of someone who's sort of like taken an idea and learned from everybody else around her, and has initiated a couple more different things that she's doing. She's also since grown the business. And one of the most interesting questions that she was asked by her mentor in that program was, the mentor asked her to do a little pie chart of how she manages her time now, and it was like, okay, how many hours in a 40-hour week do you spend managing your staff, focusing on your financial management, etc. And then she gave her the exercise of, if you were really more effective and efficient as a CEO, how would you spend your time? And it was a completely different pie chart. So just looking at that, she realized that she needed to really empower her staff, stop micromanaging people. And by doing that, she grew her company significantly within the first year. And when we were in that program, I think I was telling you this story, Annika.
Yes.
We're doing the program in Mexico. So Xiomara shared the story on, let's say it was the Tuesday of the week. The next day, Grace, who is a woman who comes from Jamaica, who has a honey wine business, bounced into the room and said, Good morning, everybody, in her beautiful Jamaican accent. She said, last night I fired myself as the chief beekeeper in my company. I am going to be the CEO, and I've just promoted this guy to do the beekeeping and this person and this person. And she too has really grown her company and her organization by realizing those things, because so many of the women kind of like get stuck in the weeds of what they're doing, and they don't have that sort of helicopter view of how things could be more impactful if they did that sort of like growing of their teams.
Okay, amazing, amazing. I love those stories of real impact of the work that organizations are doing. And I'm picking one question from the chat where Dorothy Tuma asks, and she starts out by saying economic empowerment feels non-profity while entrepreneurship feels profit-oriented. When you explain what you do to different audiences, have you found that social entrepreneurship sufficiently explains the intersection economic empowerment and entrepreneurship? And she goes on to say, I ask because Vital Voices addresses both of these areas effectively. That's Dorothy, find it challenging to explain that often entrepreneurship outside the US has a large community or economic empowerment footprint.
Yeah. So I'm just figuring out, okay, so the question is,
So the question
have you
is,
found that the title social entrepreneurship sufficiently describes the difference? A
yes,
really, really good question, Dorothy, because over the years we've really struggled with this definition. And so I think what we really call it now is it's a for-profit business with a social mission. That's the easiest way to describe social entrepreneurship, because I think everybody gets that pretty quickly. And historically, Vital Voices has worked predominantly with women outside of the US. So when Vital Voices was established, it was actually established as a State Department initiative, and then it spun off into a 501c3. And because of that history with the State Department, as you probably all know, State Department doesn't really fund much activity in the US. They fund things for outside of the US. So over the last probably 5 to 10 years, we've started incorporating women in the US. And we're finding that there are a lot of social entrepreneurs doing amazing stuff in the US. But it has been challenging to know how to articulate that social entrepreneurship definition really well.
Okay, great. So now I want to shift the questions to looking at what lessons the organization has learned. Having worked with so many women in so many different countries, what lessons would you say, based on your experience and your work, has the organization learned in engaging women's economic empowerment globally?
Yeah, a few lessons and a few observations, which is actually why we do the work that we do and why we have the curriculum that we have. When Annika and I had this conversation, I went back to my team and sort of talked about this, because we don't dive really very deep into legislation and advocacy, etc. I feel like we provide the solutions based on the observations that we see. But the things that we do see, one of them, which is basically happens across the world, which impacts economic empowerment, is gender-based violence. And the fact that so many women are not allowed to work because of the norms and cultures in their countries. There's also, we're seeing more and more tech-enabled gender-based violence. So people are being bullied online, etc. So that's actually a piece where we are in the global fellowship that I was talking about a little bit earlier. Next year, we're actually introducing tech-enabled GBV as part of our curriculum across all of our pillars, bringing in thought leadership and expertise on how to counteract that in different pillars of work, because it is something that's just growing more and more, as I'm sure we've all seen. Another big challenge is the care economy and finding caregivers so that women are enabled to work, because in so many places it's very expensive to have childcare and then to be able to earn a living. Access to credit is a massive one. Access to finance is really big. And I'm sure you've all had those conversations where, many people, when they start talking to me about the work we do, they say, oh, do you work with micro entrepreneurs? And actually we don't. And there is so much microfinance available. And then there's finance available for large, well-established organization with large revenues. But, I'm sure you've all heard the term the missing middle. There's that squishy piece in the middle where it's really hard for women to access capital to grow their business, launch their business, etc. So that for us is like a recurring theme. We don't necessarily address it by connecting women with organizations that are offering finance, but we see our role as building their capacity so that they are very articulate in their financial management, that they can speak to investors with confidence about what their growth trajectories are going to look like in their organizations. Another one is advocacy around women's access, business laws, etc. We feel like that's a big gap in economic empowerment worldwide. And I think the World Bank has done some great publications on women doing business, which show you all the challenges that different countries face in this space. In my own sort of like hidden agenda, when I think about social entrepreneurs, I've always wanted them to work with policymakers, because the more voices you have, the more opportunity you have to change legislation. And it needs to come from the practitioners explaining, what their challenges are. So if it was me, I'd have that sort of like advocacy base in all of the curriculum that we do. Then the sort of like softer skills that we've seen, some of them have arisen since COVID and some of them kind of before that. The first one is self-confidence. And this is something I find really fascinating. When we put out calls for applications for our programs, a lot of women hear about the program from a friend and they apply and they suffer from imposter complex and they think, well, I'm never going to get in. I'm not good enough, etc., etc. And we read their applications and see the incredible work that we're doing, and we're just blown away by them. And then they come into the program and on day one, they're like a deer in the headlights, like, you can see it going through their mind, like, why did you choose me? And by the end of that week, or however long it is, they see themselves as leaders. So self-confidence is a big piece of what we've noticed, and it's why we focus on our leadership journey. And then the imposter complex that I just mentioned is a massive, massive thing. And it's so interesting. This one even applies to all of our high-level senior executive women, which I find really incredible. You can sit in a room with 10 mentors and 10 mentees and say, raise your hand if you feel like you suffer from that. And almost every single hand goes up around that. Yeah. So we do a lot of training on that. And then the last piece that I think we're starting to focus on more, and I think it became very sort of obvious during the initial COVID years, was mental health and wellness. That we are starting to place more focus on that and trying to help people really balance how they navigate their lives, making sure they're taking care of themselves, because they feel so much pressure to be the caretaker of their business, of their family, of everything that's going on, and they put themselves last. And we're trying to make sure that they put themselves first so that they then have an abundance to keep sharing. So those are some of the observations that we've seen and are sort of like implementing as much as we can.
And excellent observations. And on that last point, you have to make sure that your cup is full
yes.
before you're able to support other people. And yes. I think that's something I haven't always done a very good job at doing.
Yeah.
So I'm so happy that this is something that Vital Voices has recognized. The one thing, another question that I have is, you have had a long, accomplished career. So is there any advice that you would give to other women looking to pursue a career in your field?
Yeah, I often get asked this question by young women who join Vital Voices. I'm in my 7th career chapter. And in fact, the book that you mentioned when you were reading my bio, the book here, Create Your Best Life, my chapter was about my 7 career chapters, like how I got into them. So my background includes architecture, working in a microfinance institute. I spent a year as a water skiing instructor at Club Med in Mauritius when I was 30. I then ran a handcraft business for about 7 years, launched a nonprofit for that, worked with the Coca-Cola Africa Foundation on their water, health, and education programs, and then eventually landed up at Vital Voices. And so a couple of things, as I reflect back on my own career, I feel like none of the changes that I made were failures. I feel like everything that I've done has given me the tools for the next thing that came into my life. And it was only really when I got to about the age of 35 to 40 that I got into women's empowerment work. So one of the things I feel is like, you don't always know what your passion is. You might find what it is later in life. And I feel like so many people feel under so much pressure to decide. But I also know that as I reflect back on my life, when I was leaving school, people pursued a career and they were staying in that career forever. It was like, if you're going to become an accountant, you're an accountant from day one until you retire. And now it feels a lot more flexible, I think, you know, as we have so much more access to global information. So I think when I'm talking to young people who want to go into the development space, I think the biggest thing that I would recommend, or I would do myself if I had my life again, would be I would go and I'd work in a multinational corporation trying to work in their CSR space to understand how they fund what they fund. I would try and work on the Hill or in government somewhere to understand how government operates, how they make their decisions. And then I would work in a nonprofit in that field of whatever expertise you're trying to pursue. Because I think having that balance of all three is a really, really solid footing in the development space. And then I think traveling the world for me is critically important. To be able to address all the stuff that's going on, you have to be able to understand it and see it. And that doesn't mean the fancy 5-star hotels. It means like getting into communities and understanding what their challenges are. I come from the kingdom of Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland, and grew up there, spent the majority of my life there. And you know, when I was running the handcraft business and launching the nonprofit for that, we started working with international foundations that wanted to support us. And we were doing access to clean drinking water, education about women's rights and the Constitution. It was sustainable agriculture, HIV/AIDS support, etc. And I was often fascinated by how little the investors or foundations knew about the practicalities. And we had this urban myth about an organization that sent like 50 or 100 electric sewing machines into a community with no electricity, you know. So I think to be able to do development work, you really need to understand where you're trying to solve the problems of. And then the last thing I think is and this is particularly for women, is to say to empower each other. You know, this is not a competition. And the more we can help each other and make connections for each other, the better. The better the world is going to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those are some excellent points. And so we have like I'm going to take 2 questions from the chat. So we have like 4 minutes for those 2 questions. Okay. So the first question is from Razi Amin. And that question says, does Vital Voices offer training and training tools to women entrepreneurs to boost their digital financial literacy and financial management skills to make them more profitable and bankable? That is access to finance.
Yes. So in VV Venture, the program that it used to be called the VV Grow Fellowship. That's exactly what we do. And in fact, in all of our social entrepreneurship curriculum in Vital Voices, that is exactly what we're doing. So we basically look at sort of generic organizational management skills. So they include financial management, financial literacy, understanding your finances. Because I can't tell you how many women come into our programs and they pay an accountant or an auditor or whoever to do their books, but they don't know them. They're scared of their numbers. So it's financial, it's the human resource management, because so many of them micromanage or they don't know how to delegate. It's strategic planning and business planning, social and digital media. We're also starting to incorporate a lot of content on the Sustainable Development Goals and sort of being able to articulate how each of the organizations is addressing those. So those are some of the things, but definitely finance is a priority.
Absolutely. And the last question it comes from Leah, who is the president for Global We, and she asks, does the organization favor projects that have a more local impact, or do you have more of a preference for assisting with larger projects or organizations that have had a more national impact?
Both. We don't favor either. So across the organization, so outside of just my department, we work with women leaders who have that local impact. So for example, the example that we shared at the beginning in Cameroon, that's something that started as a local impact and now has a national impact. But for example, our public leaders, many of them are impacting their whole country. So it's both. It really depends on the program and the work that the woman is doing, because as we look at them, we're also, I'm looking with the eye of what is the growth trajectory of this woman leader. And so we're not necessarily investing in their organization, we're investing in them as a leader, because we know that even if they leave that organization, they're going to have massive impact in the next thing that they do, just by nature of who they are. So it's a bit of both.
Okay. Excellent. And just to say, Zoe, I'm looking in the chat and there are quite a number of people who are co-signing your message when you said that this is not a competition. Let's lift each other up. There are quite a number of persons who are co-signing that, and I will add my to that particular message as well. So thank you so much, Zoe. That brings us to the end of our moderated discussion. We're so thankful for all the questions from the audience. We're thankful to everyone for joining us today for what, to me, and what I hope was for you as well, a fascinating discussion with an amazing leader. And Zoe, we are so grateful for you for participating, grateful that you answered our call when Global We reached out to you. And we're also very thankful to all our Global We members who have joined us. As always, we greatly appreciate our Global We board and Connect team for making this event possible. And just to wrap up, I'd like to remind everyone that at the end of the year brings us to our fundraising acts. So when that email comes, please consider celebrating our 10th anniversary with a donation to help us keep bringing you this kind of program. And the link is in the chat. There will be a member social next month and more events in 2024. So look out for our annual roundtable and expo or movie club or special 10K race and discussion circles related to current world events. And just to say, finally, Harvard Global We has additional opportunities for you to share our mission, including Connect Team, essay contests, programs, marketing, and membership teams. Our website has a list of volunteer openings, and we're always looking for suggestions for topics and speakers as well. And as a reminder, if you are not a member or a friend of Global We, but would like to join us, please visit our website at harvardglobalwe.org or click on the link in the chat to register to receive our newsletter. And I know that Zoe is going to be a new member of the Harvard Globally friend circle. So thanks everyone again for your participation. Thank you so much, Zoe. Have a beautiful and wonderful rest of the day, everyone. And it was good to have the opportunity to moderate this particular discussion. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Yes, sign up if you'd like. The main difference is that the member of Harvard Globally needs to be a Harvard alum, and then the friend can be any person in the membership, or friendship is free. And on our team, we have I think we have more non-Harvard alums at the moment on our volunteer team altogether than Harvard alums. So that's the main difference. And I like that Zoe just replied to Wendy that she's in Denver. So we officially have Colorado represented in our event. So I'm gonna just hang out for maybe a couple more minutes if anybody has any questions or anything, and then we're gonna send a recording if you'd like to share with friends and family. Thank you very much. And you can hear my mom's cat who now wants to enter this room. Oh, probably you don't, but okay. She's here. She just announced herself. So
She's not walking across the keyboard.
not anymore, because first time I was not prepared. I was like on the client call, and then the cat just jumped on my lap, and I don't have a cat at home, so I was like, oh, but now I'm prepared. So I closed the door, and she likes to announce herself.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Zoe. I think.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a wonderful rest of the day.